Welcome to On the Brink with Andi Simon, a podcast that's designed to help you get off the brink. Makes sense in today's very fast-changing world. As an anthropologist, we're looking at a culture going through a great transformation. And my job is to help you see, feel, and think in new ways. Be a little anthropological. Step out, look at what's happening to yourself, your family, your friends, and your organizations in a very clear perspective. Don't look at it from the inside in, but from the outside. And then you begin to see things in new ways. I have a wonderful woman here today who I think is going to inspire you to think about your place as a woman and a man in this wonderful world. India Gary Martin is the new chair of the Women Business Collaborative, an organization Edie Fraser founded and I've been a member of for 5 years. It's an organization that was designed to bring together other organizations to collaborate, and its purpose is to get equal position, pay, and power for all women in business. India comes in as the second chair, and in her great endeavor here, she's bringing fresh perspective. And we're going to talk a little bit about all of this in a moment and her own journey, which is very interesting. I do want to put a little pitch in for those of you who are listening or watching. There's a wonderful event coming May 21st and 22nd in New York called the Women's Capital Summit. I'm just reading my notes. And it's investing for impact, building a future of shared success. And it's a time for you to come and talk about your business, find advocates for it, and find ways of funding it, perhaps. But it's a marvelous time for you to think about opportunities that the Women Business Collaborative brings to you and your business. With that, who's India? Let me give you a short story about why you should listen so carefully. She's held global COO and CTO positions at some of the world's largest institutions. She's had expat assignments for a combined 20 years in London, Frankfurt, Tokyo, and Hong Kong. I said to you, she's going to bring you quite a robust journey to talk about. Her post as corporate career, she's a seasoned public and private company board of director for institutions in the US and the UK. I think WBC is truly honored to have her and excited about her vision for Women Business Collaborative. A little bit more. Through her own company, Leadership for Execs, India is a globally recognized leadership expert and strategic advisor. And remember, we have had a leadership academy and several clients for several years now, 8 years in one. So this is not inconsequential. Building leadership teams around the globe is something she has expertise in, and I'm anxious to pick her brain. She's also the founder of Relucent Learning, a tech training and development business, providing scalable, high-quality leadership development in a white-labeled learning management platform to corporate, governmental, and nonprofit entities. She's going to tell you more, but I know she's smiling, and I am as well. It's wonderful to have you here, India. Thank you so much for joining us.
Andi, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this, I have to tell you, sitting down with you and after being a listener and hearing you and now being able to be here, I'm delighted. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's share with our listeners or our viewers your journey. Because I can tell them your bio a little bit, but you, when you talk about your journey, fill us with wisdom, and it's difficult to duplicate it except through the experiences you've had. So, who is India and how have you journeyed?
So, who is India? I am and I always start from the beginning because I think it's the nice place, and that is that I am the eldest girl of seven. I often joke and say to people that I have my own three children, but I also have six others. So I actually have nine. I am the second mother to all of my siblings. But no, I am a at my heart keen advocate for women, keen advocate for justice whole more broadly. I have been playing in the women's space, and I'll talk about my career space because it does take us through a journey of how I got here. But I'm a keen advocate in the women's space and have been since I really started actively doing this work around women in business in 1998. That was kind of my genesis, my kickoff year. And I'll come to how that happened. So I did my university degree at Spelman College, all women's university in Atlanta, which again started a part of my thinking around women and the importance of us in this society. It was bred into me. I then went on to Wall Street, and I'll explain that journey was an interesting one because it says something about women and our condition and what we are told we can and can't do. And I entered university as a drama major, a theater major. That was my goal. I was going to be on stage, and in some ways, I still am. In some ways, I'm okay.
That's a
But
whole other conversation.
that's a whole
I
different
think we're always
conversation.
on stage. But
But
continue.
we are. But the thing that kind of challenged me about that was thinking that I wouldn't make it. Like, how am I going to make a living doing this thing? And so I changed history pre-law, which didn't work out either. Obviously, I went to Wall Street, and landed on Wall Street. Journey there, the kind of message there is allow things to emerge, and they will take you on the path that you're supposed to. So I went to Wall Street, where I was for almost 25 years in a variety of capacities. I think, you mentioned my expat experience. And I knew very early on, as a child of a USAID person, that I wanted to live in the world and that I didn't want to just live in the US, though it's my home country. It was for me always about living in the world. And banking platforms gave me the opportunity to do that. I knew that I wanted to be in a multinational. I knew that I wanted to travel the world. So it was, how do I get from one place to another? And banking was the choice that I made. I was in the US for, I guess, 5 or 6 years before I went to the UK, where I was for several years, met my husband and had my children. Um, I will say this about that kind of expat journey and what it taught me. And I went on to other parts of Europe and Asia. And that was being opportunistic. And it goes back to that a theme of mine around allowing things to emerge,
Yes.
but taking opportunity when it comes. Personally, I've never been an absolute planner about like my career path or what that path might be. I like and am good at a lot of different things, so I wanted to give myself the space. That wasn't always intentional. It was a source of great frustration at some points, not having that kind of like, I absolutely want to do this. But once had the level of professional maturity to recognize the gift and being able to allow things to emerge, and identifying opportunities and leveraging those opportunities to get to what I wanted to get to. That was the big shift for me. And so, I spent all of this time in the corporate space, fast forward to 2014, and decided that it was time for me to do something different when my youngest child at the time, who might have been 3, and I was an old mother, so let's just leave that there. The youngest was 3 or 4, maybe she was. And I came home from a business trip. I traveled a lot. In my last job, I think I traveled 70% of the time. My child wouldn't come to me.
Uh-huh.
And she would only go to the person who was keeping her. And that was a real kind of wake up call for me. And so I made the foray into entrepreneurship as a part of that. And I started my companies, the first one in 2014. I'm actually a 4-time entrepreneur now. And that has created there's a journey in that too,
Mhm.
um, in recognizing failure, and that failure isn't actually failure. It really is learning for the next thing.
Yes.
um, perseverance, which
Mhm.
is critically important. But I think the bigger part of the entrepreneurial journey that I've learned, as I kind of think about what that looked like, is that you have to be prepared to take risk, because without there is no reward without risk, particularly for women founders who often are underfunded and who tend to are starting from a 0 point.
Mhm.
Um, that journey is a really interesting one. I'll pause there because I'm sure there's lots that we could talk about. That's my journey. I went from, a child of a USAID person to an all women's college, to Wall Street, to an expat life, into entrepreneurship. I've had quite a ride, I would say.
Well, just in reflecting on what you're saying, and I often think of it from an audience perspective. When I took um, my self-assessment, I became an explorer. And I said, well, I'm an anthropologist. That works. I love your concept of living in the world. It is exploring it. It's understanding that I don't know what I don't know, and then being open to serendipity, opportunity, chance. And you're a listener, you hear things, and from there you turn things into stuff. I do want to talk about your entrepreneurial experience, though, but you're also a philosopher. And I say
Right.
that because as I'm listening to you, you're yes, you understand business, but I don't think the bottom line is the only thing that's the relevant concept here. We are looking at entrepreneurs with purpose, but in fact, you're philosophical about how this is part of a life that you're developing. And as you're thinking that way, though, tell us a little bit more about the entrepreneur. I'm married to a serial entrepreneur. I coach entrepreneurs all the time, but I love entrepreneurial stories because some work and some don't, and so on, and we move on. But you began to see things, and I'm curious about what kind of businesses did you start? And how did they stop? And give us a little about the what worked, what didn't, and what you should pay attention to, because I think our listeners are going to be interested.
Surely. I mean, it's a really interesting one. I mean, the thing, in addition to my child and the things the younger child and what I was dealing with that, the other thing that happened is I was doing some research when I was still in the banking world with some analysts about industries that grow through recession.
Mm.
And one of the things that came up was beauty. And like, listen, I like the beauty stuff. That's all great, but it's not my passion necessarily. But I was looking at it from an investment perspective. And at the time when I was in the UK, I found that color cosmetics was the thing. And in Europe and the UK, it was nail polish, which was like 10 years behind the US in terms of those kind of color things. There weren't at that time like nail bars on every corner. That wasn't happening there. I mean, I saw that as a huge opportunity. So off I march, don't ask me why, to go to France to develop this nail polish. This is a personal thing I'm doing on the side. This is not work related. I'm like, I'm going to just kick off. I'm going to test this.
I love it.
Right?
Forgive me,
So,
but that's right up my alley. Love it, love it, love it.
so I'm
So you decide,
seriously, I
nail
go and
polish.
find, I know, I do some research very lightly and go and find like these manufacturers in France to contract manufacture this nail polish that I wanted. And I wanted it to be, I've always been quite a green person. I wanted it to be chemical free. That was going to be my big claim to fame very early. So I go and do this, produce this polish, 84 colors. Don't ask me why. And I come back and I think, oh, this is great. I have it now. What am I going to do with it? Because it suddenly started to dawn on me because it was not a planned thing. Honestly, I was like testing it to see what would happen. Um, and I come back and I'm like, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to distribute it? And the really quick story, because it gets quite long, is that I ended up taking this nail polish and opening my own nail shops, luxury nail bars. That was my plan. I was going to do 10 of them around the UK, around London primarily, but also in the UK, and distribute through my own shop. I got to shop number two and open shop number two, and somebody from a store called Harvey Nichols, which is probably like a Saks Fifth Avenue here, came in and was like, "This is great. Can I introduce you to our beauty person?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's great." So I meet this woman. I go on about my business. I'm thinking like that was great practice to kind of understand like what retailers want. They call me and they're like, "We want to carry it in all of our stores." They buy it. They buy the
Oh,
product.
forgive me. I'm sorry to laugh, but opportunity.
Opportunity. And then it started to gain kind of some notoriety. We started landing in some of the magazines because we were there, like we were in Vogue, we were in all of the kind of UK glamour, the same ones here. And then another brand called Space and K, which is a big kind of like an Ulta Sephora kind of place in the UK. There are a couple of them here as well, picked it up too. So now we're in like, I don't know, 300 doors around the US, I'm sorry, around the UK, Europe, and the Middle East. It goes great. 2016 happens, Brexit happens, and we were at the point at which we really needed investors. We had to because we were outpacing ourselves. We were a small little thing. I'd left my job to come. My husband was like, "You need to go run this thing. It's our money." So I did, and the kid thing. So it all kind of worked out. But we started outpacing our ability to fund the business in a timely manner because in retail it can take you can get 4 to 6 month invoices, and that is hard when you're running a business.
Yeah, it's a revenue stream,
It's a revenue stream.
Yeah, you
We were
pray.
absolutely. And so we were having conversations with investors, and everybody pulled out because of Brexit because they didn't know what was going to happen, blah, 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 which is what brought me back to the US. And over time, it was too difficult to raise. This wasn't our market. There were a whole bunch of things. And so I had to take the difficult decision to shut it down. It was painful. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But now I'm comfortable with that and I can shut them down quickly. That one was really, really hard. It was a really hard thing, and we ended up taking all the product and selling it to TJ Maxx, who sold it in their
Yes.
beauty thing, and we closed everything down. And it was kind of like, what do I do now? And that's how I got and so my other businesses are really around my leadership journey and the work that I was doing in my corporate life. And I was made a managing director very early in the banking world. I was in my 30s, which is pretty early. And people always asked me how I did it and how I had a global, I was in a global business of 15,000 people early in my life. And they're like, how did you do this across all these countries? And so I started thinking about how I could do leadership advisory work. And I kicked off that business, which has just grown from strength to strength. It is my natural space and place. The advisory work is my natural place and space. I am able to take my corporate work, the work that I do sitting on boards, and really give leaders really great perspective on the what and the how. So that's evolved, and that one kicked off. I mean, I actually was doing some of that at the same time as I was doing the beauty business. But I kind of just focused on that, and it grew, and the learning management platform grew out of the back of that, because people wanted more of me and I couldn't give more of me. So we were like, let's build the capability so that we can scale it and give people whatever they want. I don't have to be there. It can be self-paced. We can take that out of the equation. So we did that, accredited, all the things. And then I have my fourth venture, which is Act Three, which you heard about, which is about women in midlife. I just have this broad range of things, which are all interconnected. But that really have brought me to where I am.
Well, that raises the question of WBC and India Gary Martin. At this point, in all of the things that you've done, there's something here that clearly tickled you, something that opened a door for you. You truly believe in a life journey, and your story, whether it's the nail polish or it's a leadership one, brings a warmth to my heart because, we're on a journey and we have value, and how do we use it so others can benefit by it? And we are really very excited at WBC that you are now the chair. Now, tell us about, why us? Why now? Why here? And what's next for us and for you? Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. It does. So I'll be really, really, really honest. This came to me during the election time. So, I think I started having the conversation with WBC back in maybe August or September of 2024. I was formally appointed in March, so that gives you like some perspective around the timing of it all. And I had some great trepidation as I was thinking about it,
Mhm.
because I thought to myself, what is it to be the chair of an organization that convenes, 80 plus women's organizations, a load of sponsors and donors, a load of champions. What is that going to mean in this moment? We didn't know what it was going to be. We had no idea how things were going to shape out or what the implications were going to be. Um, and I was actually, it took me a minute to get my head around whether or not this is something I wanted to do, because it is a huge responsibility in this moment. And WBC, I believe, has a huge responsibility in this moment, to not only be a convener, but to be a beacon for women in business, and to ensure that we understand all of the things that are coming, and that we convene people to be able to talk about it and come to common solutions around how we'll walk through it. And that, again, as I was reflecting on what that would require, as the person kind of sitting as the chair of this, I'm really blessed by an amazing board, and an amazing CEO. And so, I mean, that was never a worry for me, because I was kind of like, when I looked at the people, I was like, if I'm going to be in the fight, these are the people I want to be in the fight with. And when I say fight, I say that gently, because I don't believe in pushing the boulder uphill, right? I think that we do this with ease because it's who we are, and it's the way that we operate. But I will say that I think WBC has a tremendous opportunity in this moment. And that, never will the work that we do be doom and gloom, because this is what we were born to. We've been doing this forever. And as you kind of rightfully pointed out earlier, this is a journey. And, things aren't actually that much different, to be fair. I mean, and when I say that, I am not minimizing the loss of income for people, loss of jobs, the trauma that sometimes being shaken, can create. So I'm not minimizing that at all. But what I am saying is that for women in underrepresented groups, it's not a lot different.
Mhm.
It's just much more obtuse and kind of in your face. It's that thing. And so we carry on and we do what we have to do. And we recognize that, women are 51% of the population. We are a significant portion of the workforce. Without us, we fall apart. And so our role is to ensure that, that we're a voice in remembering that, and that we bring people to the fore to have those conversations.
I'm excited. I was speaking at a group in Chicago at the beginning of Women's History Month. There were 80 women in there, and we were talking about how to lead without limits and how to begin to see ourselves in a different fashion, one that we probably have been around. Because I got into banking by chance, and I became an executive in two banks. I was EVP of one, and I was the only or the first in that C-suite. And I remember not only being an anthropologist there, which was weird, but also not really looking left and right, not really knowing who I belonged with. And that was many years ago. I won't date myself, but like you, it's been a lifetime of trying to figure out how do we create a different visual and platform for men and women to build and build better together. And I do think that is part of my purpose and passion because you can't do without guys and guys can't do without women. Women are over half the graduates of college, it's half the masters, half the doctorates, half the doctors, half the dentists, 65% of the accountants. Really? I mean, let's take
Yeah.
a look at the world the way it is. And oh, by the way, we're also raising the kids, taking care of our parents, and running the house and buying 80% of the food and all the rest. So, what am I missing?
Yeah.
The couple of things, and I'm so glad you mentioned the inspiration that comes out of WBC because I too am inspired by it and by the folks who are associated. The vision that I know Edie had at the beginning was how do we collaborate? There's more that can be done together than by any one of us alone. And that's not always that easy because the word collaboration has so many different actions to it. It's not just meaning, it's how do I do this? And why and how do we all benefit in some fashion? Do you have some perspective perhaps you are discovering or sharing?
No, I mean, I think for sure. I think that the key to collaboration um, is that you still get to have what's important to you. Like you don't have to change your central mission to collaborate with others.
Mhm.
The key is what are the things that unite us? Identifying the things that unite us and going on those things, and respecting that there will be other things that we have as missions or passions in our respective places and spaces that are just fine, and they should be absolutely. So collaboration is kind of that thing that kind of unites us, but also or things that unite us, but also, that I can do my thing and still amplify yours.
Yes.
Right. It's not a competition at all by any stretch. Like I can only do the thing I can uniquely do, and you can do the thing you uniquely do. There's never a competition in my mind. When it comes to full stop, when it comes to how we do this stuff together, faster together, better together. Edie talks about that all of the time, and she's absolutely right. We have to lift and uphold um, a core set of values around what it means to do all the things that you said that you talked about that women bring and do, but also remember that A, we're not alone in this, and B, that if we do this together we will go far faster, far faster and way, way, way better than we could ever do alone. And I think if we can kind of keep that at the center, then you kind of have it.
Well, the other thing, I've been working with different industries over my 23 years in business, and I'm watching the transformation of relationships in those areas, learning to listen and hear, learning to begin to lead with different styles, to stop thinking about the other as an adversary as opposed to, a common collaborative advocate. And I'm watching the cultures in these companies begin to see um, the differences as opportunities. And I don't think we need programs. I do think culture doesn't come programmatically by the arts. It comes from experiential and trust. And a sense that what I say and mean you understand and we can work better together because we are rising. At the event at the beginning of March, I watched women sharing with each other in ways that were exciting. They all wanted to know what do you need? I remember hearing, what do you need and how can I help? And it wasn't about me and I, it was about we. And those are core values and behaviors that lift everybody. And it's so exciting to watch. So, I'm listening to our interview and I'm saying to myself, now, how far can I take India? How many months can we be together to share this? Because the inspiration is shareable. And and I don't even want to talk about the obstacles because they are just here for us to be challenged by, right?
Right. I mean, like, this is what I say. I think you hit on a really interesting point around culture, particularly, and the culture that you create. And here's the thing. I think that you're absolutely right that people are starting to think about what that looks like and how it happens, but people will behave as the container creates. So if you want good behavior, create a container that helps, facilitate good behavior, right? That is such an important part of this message is people understanding the container in which they're operating and stop trying to change people and fix the container. Like fix the container,
Yep.
not people. People will behave as you create an environment for them to. But if you don't fix the container, you can chase and do whatever you want with people all day long. Nothing will shift. It'll keep going back. It's kind of like I give people an example of, let's say you're in a company and people come and go, but the behaviors stay the same. It's because of the culture. It's the container that we're holding. So if you want to shift the way people operate, shift the container. And I will also say that one of the things that, as I've kind of studied over the past, let's call it 25 or 30 years, I would say 30 years ago, when I started in the world of work, 35 years ago, should I be saying that? 35 years ago, when I started in the world of
I'm with you.
when I started in the world of work, a lot of the work was about relationships.
Yes.
And it's become very transactional. And I think a part of that is the speed at which people are moving, on demand, everything in the palm of my hand answers to everything.
Yes.
And there are a couple things about that. One is that, frankly, just because you can Google it doesn't mean you can do it. There's something to be said for experience. And the second thing is, we have to get back to relationships and seeing people for who they are and their value and not what they can just give me. And
Yes.
that is the ultimate, that is the base of collaboration.
Yes, it is. I have a friend, Andi Kramer, and she wrote a book. It's not you, it's the workplace. And in it, she
Mhm.
really does talk about the fact that that container that you're describing sets the stage. Your sort of drama is the stage for you to perform. And if the play isn't the one you want to perform in, you got to change it. I
Mhm.
always tell people it's like you played Hamlet all this time, but you don't want to play that anymore. So here's Macbeth. Can you learn the script and change the relationships?
Sure.
And metaphors often work better than dictating it. And just think about it. You can play different roles, just change the conversation.
Yeah.
And they say, well, how do you do that? I said, you rehearse as if you were on stage,
My
right?
theater background helps me with that.
Mine too. But now we are reaching that point in our conversation where it's time to tell the folks two or three things that you don't want them to forget. Because I often think they remember the end even more importantly than the beginning. I want to make sure we emphasize that wonderful May 22nd, May 21st, 22nd conference on capital. But a couple of things you don't want them to forget.
Um, I don't want them to forget that you're not alone. Like,
Mm.
you're just not alone in this. And to find your tribe. We exist. Come to Women Business Collaborative. We exist. Your tribe exists. So I think the first one is remembering that you're not alone. The second one is that, opportunity is everywhere. It's all a matter of perspective. And that even if it feels difficult and it's hard to put one foot in front of the other, um, every storm runs out of rain. The sun will shine and follow the sun. That's my second thing. And the last thing I will say is that we have to do this better, faster, and together. Like, none of what we need to achieve societally, environmentally, even in our workplaces, can we do alone. That it is ultimately about building community and recognizing the value in people, and that you don't have to agree with somebody to understand their value. You don't have to like them to understand their value, but understand that every person has a value and to focus on the relationships as opposed to the transactional.
Yes. We can go further, faster together should be everybody's tagline.
Good.
It creates a brand of action where it's not about me, it's about we, it's not about I, it's about us, and all of a sudden it changes the dynamics and our perspective of what's important and how to do it. Would you like to share about the Capital Summit that's coming May 21st and 22nd? You do the pitch. I started. Perhaps you want to end it?
I would just say the Women's Capital Summit is May 21st and 22nd in New York City. Please be there. Like as a founder, I'm going there to see all the funders. So, founders and funders, please come out. I mean, this is a real moment for us. And, we think about how we fund women-owned businesses. This is a place to do it, to fund, and for founders to come and meet folks who can help you along that journey. And I think most importantly, to find your tribe and find your community because we are here.
I think that's just beautiful. And I could tell it's just a wonderful time. I keep thinking about how to blow the brand out and make it the place that people line up to belong to. It's not, it's young and it needs to just get that emphasis. I'm so delighted that you're now the chair. I
Thank
love Edie Fraser. She's built such a wonderful
Edie's my girl. She is my guiding star and guiding light in this.
She's our North Star, and
She
I do
is.
adore her. On that note, I'm going to tell everybody who comes and listens or watches, I can't thank you enough for being part of our tribe. And this podcast is here to get you off the brink. We call it On the Brink because so many people come to us and say, what do I do? You have to see, feel, and think in new ways. Listen carefully to what India has been talking about, particularly as you think about your own business, whether it's inside a corporation or it's an entrepreneurial venture. You have an opportunity to we it and see how much further we go together and faster. And you'd be amazed at the wonderful value of diverse ideas and energies. If you bring them together like a good team, you can really win. And so my books are all available on Amazon. Just look on Andi Simon with an I. And Women Mean Business, over 500 insights from extraordinary leaders to spark your success was written with Edie Fraser. And it is about all of those wonderful 102 women who want you to soar. And I do as well. So my tag is from observation to innovation. Sticking to that observation part India talked about. She's intuitive. She sees things. She listens. The next thing you know, she's on a whole new nail venture. And how do you begin to make? I don't know. All I know is that it's a wonderful opportunity to listen in and enjoy and share. And thanks so much. Bye bye now. Have a great day. India, thanks again for coming.
Thank you for having me.